Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Vikas Nangia with another episode of CyberWatch, a program through which you get the insight, news and views on cyber security world. Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode of CyberWatch, we will do the analysis of the news that made headlines in January 2024. And to discuss on that and to do the analysis, our guest on the program is Lalit Ahluwalia, the founder and CEO of DigitalXForce and iTrustXForce. Lalit, thank you so very much for joining us on CyberWatch.
Thank you, Vikas. Glad to be here.
You know, since it's still the beginning of the year, we're in the first quarter. Before I really get to the news that made the headlines, can you also give us some predictions of cybersecurity trends that one could expect in 2024?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Vikas. We, in fact, just published the 2024 top predictions for the new era. And of course, as everyone will expect, with the impact of AI, artificial intelligence in the day-to-day, that made the top headline, the prediction that the AI-based attacks with the sophisticated botnets and sophistication of the phishing emails, add the deepfakes to the mix, machine learning, that's going to really actually make it all this attack surface even more sophisticated.
So we should be touching on deepfakes for sure. There, of course, we should be talking about all these, cybersecurity trends that will make the news. But deepfakes is, something that is making a lot of buzz at all levels. Whether it is the politicians, actors, Hollywood, Bollywood, you name it. everybody is talking about that. Let's get started with the news analysis now. The first news that made a lot of buzz is Google settles down $5 billion privacy lawsuit. Tech titan Google has opted to settle a landmark privacy lawsuit surrounding its Chrome web browser, averting a jury trial that could have costed billions. The class action case alleged the search giant duped users into believing they could browse with complete anonymity by enabling incognito mode. Lalit, what would you say?
So I think it's important for the folks to understand what this lawsuit is all about.
Right.
And what that really means. I think a lot of you as an audience must have noticed private browsing on your browsers.
Right.
And when you're saying private browsing, that means it's like supposed to be confidential. Transactions or activities that you're doing only for you.
Right.
Versus regular browser mode is like, where the data is made available through cookies and everything. What's going on in the incognito mode and everything, the lawsuit is about that even though I was doing activity in incognito, my data was still being analyzed by Google.
Right, and that's exactly the news further says. It says in reality, the lawsuit asserted Google illegally tracked these private sessions using hidden web analytics tools, amassing trove of data on unwitting users who assumed their activities were confidential. That's exactly what you said, yeah.
Exactly. And this is what it's all about, like you're invading my privacy or invading my privacy. In Google's defense, they said we put all the different notices and got acceptances, which we talked in other episodes too.
Right.
But the whole concept of incognito, that I'm going incognito, means invisible, and I need to do what is private to me, is what really went against. Now, technically, this could have blown up to a bigger multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, and still, I think Google would have ended up being on the receiving end. So by settling this one now, they're of course really now avoiding the nitty-gritties of what went on or what data was utilized and get out of it.
Right.
The question for the audience now is, it's very hard for you to track whether I was a victim or not a victim or how's my data is going to use.
Right.
And this is where you should be demanding how your data that you've shared is being utilized by anyone that you've shared the data with.
All right. So in another news, in an unprecedented coordinated effort, police from 34 countries collaborated in Operation HAECHI-4, resulting in the arrest of 3,500 individuals and seizure of assets valued at $300 million. The operation, conducted by Interpol from July to December, focused on 7 major cybercrime categories, including voice phishing, romance scams, and business email compromise fraud.
Yep. And how many of you have seen the crypto, scams?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Listen, I'm calling from so-and-so. We made a ton of money in crypto. We would like you to be part of this one.
Many who are victims of this, yes.
And many victims of that, getting into that, they'll be lured into put some money so we can really get you in the crypto.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, the fear of missing out, the FOMO that we talked about, right?
Right.
Many people falling victim of that. So these are some of the scenarios. Now, the good thing is this is collaboration between multiple governments and multiple, collaboration between different entities to really bring it all together. And this is something that we need to have more and more, because some of these threats are very global in nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They can rise from somewhere, but they're supported from other parts of the country, or other countries, and this is how they propagate. And that was the essence of this one, who's really behind this ones. In fact, some of the groups that were caught in Korea and other places, you would not have been able to catch them if this was not really founded in another country and they collaborated with other one.
Right.
That's the significance of this news here. Now, the sums that you're talking about, 300 million, 3,500,
arrests,
this is just a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
Cybercrime is $1 trillion market. And let's say 180 countries combine and join hands. Trust me, that you can really nail so many down. The challenge is not many countries collaborate at that level.
Right. It is difficult to unify everyone. In another news, My Estate app data breach exposes 500,000 user records, including plain text passwords. In a concerning breach, the My Estate Point property search app, developed by New Jersey Technologies, left a MongoDB server exposed, leaking data on nearly 500,000 users. The compromised information encompasses sensitive details such as names, plain text passwords, email addresses, and more. What would you say?
So this is what I call as fundamental building blocks that anyone in the information technology services should be applying. This is being irresponsible. When you're deploying a certain technology, think of this way, Vikas. If you a car service provider, would you ever lend a car to anyone, say your rental service, that does not have proper brakes?
Right.
Or does not have proper safety mechanisms in place.
Right.
It's your moral and other ethical responsibility to do that. When information systems are developed, imagine when you know that people can come and crack your systems, and now you're giving away all information in a plain text format, which means I can see each and everybody's password and other sensitive information which is not even encrypted, and that is at full disclosure to me.
Right.
You should never even have built systems like that. The users, on the other hand, should be demanding, this is really my sheer responsibility. Why would I want to become a subscriber of a service provider that does not follow the basic principles of cybersecurity?
Right.
The risk over here is now that data is available, and that data we talked about in the previous December segment, how you lost passwords from somewhere else and they were used in 23andMe hack.
Correct. So it's the same thing.
Same thing. Now the same password database will be in the black market. Somebody's going to use it because your password is here, your credentials is here. More likely because it's using the same for other services that I know he's tracking.
Right.
And if they do not have two-factor authentication or multi-factor, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to crack open your vaults somewhere else.
It's going to have some serious repercussions. Interesting. Viewers, we're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, we'll resume our conversation with Lalit Ahluwalia. We'll be right back after these messages. Lalit, once again, welcome to CyberWatch. Some interesting insight from you, and that makes our viewers so much more vigilant, when it comes to cybersecurity. So we'll continue with our news analysis, the news that made headlines in January 2024. Phishing scam targets Instagram users, a popular social media platform that everybody looks up and posts their pictures and so much more. The news says that a new an alarming phishing campaign has emerged, strategically impersonating a copyright infringement email to deceive Instagram users. The deceptive messages falsely claim users have violated intellectual property laws, resulting in imposed account restrictions. In a bid to appeal this supposed decision, recipients are urged to click on a provided button, unwittingly redirecting them to a sophisticated phishing pages.
Instagram, I'm pretty sure somebody in your household is using Instagram, if not you.
Of course,
It's one of the most popular social media platforms. And the other thing which is very important is, again, phishing. And if people don't understand technical terms about phishing, this is about really where I really make you believe in some things and trying to steal some confidential data that can be then compromised and used for other malicious activities.
Right.
So phishing, when you get an email from someone, oh, you won XYZ dollars, come and claim your prize, and they ask you to fill in the information. Or they will fake some kind of bank website, they want you to click and then put the ID and password, doing that. How many times you must have seen emails, oh, your bills are due, you need to take an action right now.
Right.
Come and do this.
Yeah.
This is nothing but different forms of phishing.
Right.
And now with AI and botnets, we talk about this is really getting more and more serious theft. The one that we're really talking about in the case of Instagram, this was when you are a user of an Instagram and you've been asked or sent a note from, let's say, Instagram or something looking like Instagram internal team saying, oh, you have a copyright infringement. Either take action now or we're going to block you or take an action.
Yeah, you would immediately be taking the action because you don't want to get blocked.
Blocked or, oh, is there some kind of legal obligation? That connotation.
Right.
So it's kind of like really now a threat, a fear,
right,
and prompts you to do this. Now, if you're not really very sophisticated, what's going to happen?
Right.
Your first reaction is going to let me go and take an action. That's where press this button and go, and basically they're trying to steal that confidential data out of you now.
Yeah.
Now, what makes it even more serious is the kind of data they're trying to get into is actually to also take your two-factor code out of your system. So even if you have multi-factor authentication, which is more systematic, I'm only going to come through this device. If I'm able to crack that open, doesn't matter which device I'm coming from, I'm pretending.
Right. So Lalit, what should one really be doing? Because for hackers, it's the low-hanging fruit. They know that a large number of people browse and they go on Instagram as for social media, connecting, posting their pictures, doing trading, and so much more information that they use. And the same thing even for Facebook Marketplace. They post so much information about themselves and the product that they want to raise awareness about. What should one really be doing to avoid the phishing scams?
See, there are certain things that you should be watching for always, because who is the sender? There's always some discrepancies, either logos or the URL, where it's coming from. And sometimes you'll also see the email IDs where they're coming from, for example, very common. You'll see a legit email ID or 1/2 delta dash, something like that at the rate of this, even though everything else looks very authentic there. In fact, I'll share a case study, and I think people will probably laugh at this. I was at one of these conferences a few years back, and my co-presenter, he was sharing, we were talking about the phishing attacks and everything. He said to the audience, and we were sharing this example to the case study, he said, I will tell you an example of where almost I was hijacked with this phishing attack. Email comes from my boss, who's the CEO and the founder, that go and take this prompt action, everything else, right? And I almost fell for it, coming from my CEO, from my boss, and I need to take immediate action. And that the only way I really tracked that this was not him, because he wrote the word thank you at the bottom. He said, knowing my boss, he never thanks anyone. That was the only way I could see, oh, that can be him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything had looked very identical. If you look at in con movies,
right,
we con somebody else. In fact, there's a very nice case study, or YouTube, if people want to go check, how somebody sold a Nigerian airport for $248 million to a legit and how they played with the people's emotion and the desires and stuff to make it happen.
Right.
In fact, because this is important for the people who are working in the corporate world, the sophistication of this phishing attacks.
Right.
One thing was luring you into, whether through fear or through like incentive or something. Mm-hmm. There's even a campaign, the phishing campaign, where you send a phishing email. Vikas identified this as a phishing email.
Right.
That they built the phishing logic was in that report phish me button. Mm-hmm. So if you think this is like spam and phishing attempt, click spam reporting, and they built that track into that. They prompted you to report and give away the information.
Wow.
That's how sophisticated that became. And now all I'm saying is like with all this AI sophisticated like botnets and stuff I'm talking about, people have yet to see the next age,
right.
Not just the deepfakes. And this is where the challenge is like, it's high time that you become self-aware, follow what calls the basic hygienic things, like start watching what is triggering, where it's coming from, and even the context. Sometimes you might not be able to decipher because the email looks legit or characters look legit and everything. Of course, there's some hint somewhere.
Right.
But context of that email. If something is really asking you money or asking you to like do something in a prompt, question it. Why are they in such a rush? Right. Why are they really making you do it?
Well, great insight, and thank you for sharing that expertise with us. Viewers, we're going to take another short break over here, and as part of our ritual on CyberWatch, in our third segment, we always highlight and talk about the CyberWatch News Flash. But today we will bypass it since we're talking about news that made headlines. So we'll continue with the news analysis. We'll be right back after these messages. Lalit, once again, welcome to CyberWatch, and we'll continue to do the news analysis. We are in our last segment of our program. The big news that came out of India was that leading Indian firm HCL faces ransomware attack. It said in a recent cyber incident, HCL Technologies, a leading Indian IT consulting firm, reported a ransomware attack within an isolated cloud environment for a specific project. The company promptly informed investors and stakeholders, emphasizing that no discernible impact had occurred across in its broader network. However, the incident triggered a comprehensive investigation, with the company collaborating closely with relevant stakeholders to identify the root cause and take corrective actions. Things like this, Lalit, whenever they happen with companies as big as HCL, it has a massive repercussion, be it on their stock, be it on the face value. A few episodes ago, we were talking about digital trust, and that's also gets hampered. What would you say?
Oh, huge. And first of all, I also want to make sure people understand it's not unique to SCL, to be fair. Many mega companies have suffered this kind of attacks and will continue. Why? Because we talked about digital trust versus standard compliance and, standard cybersecurity practices and all.
Right.
Of course, whenever you suffer such an attack, it's not much like financial and other things, sometimes reputational loss of clients, and even programs and the projects, even in a consulting world like that. Where I really see, because the biggest challenge comes to organizations like this, is the distributed and the fragmented nature, and because of your businesses, you're not really paying ample attention to even the third parties and other things, because some of those compromises happen because of not directly me getting compromised, but some of my third parties that I'm using, suppliers, and I do not put enough onus or holding them responsible for that, and that can propagate into my environment and then make me look bad. So there's a combination of factors. Of course, this was more internal investigation, whatever I caused for the ransomware, whether something happened, but in the new SEC filings that have come, organizations have to report any kind of cyber incident within 4 days.
Right.
And have to file an official report. That's how stringent that is getting. And of course, some of them are paying heavy penalties.
Right.
And there's onus on the chief security officers and other board members for being equally responsible for these activities.
In another interesting news that I have for the viewers is EU reaches deal on AI regulation. In an historic move, the European Union has secured a provisional agreement on the Artificial Intelligence Act after marathon 36-hour negotiations. This groundbreaking legislation sets out to regulate the use of AI systems, covering everything from foundational models like ChatGPT to the deployment of AI in the governmental and law enforcement contexts, particularly in biometric surveillance.
And I would probably say, first of all, as citizens, it's a huge win, especially in European Union, because as we all know, this AI is such a hot topic, just like crypto.
Right.
Everyone is wondering when it's going to get regulated and to what extent it's going to get regulated.
Right.
AI, given nobody even fully understands the full implications, really arriving at such a act or the regulation is a huge win. Why? Because that means there's an attempt now to safeguard at least the government services that are being offered to the citizen. In what form can AI be used?
Right.
Can be just open-ended and anyone can do anything without any restrictions, because more than likely people are going to, or businesses are going to use that to their advantage.
Right.
Financial gains and stuff. And if you don't put those restrictions, that means just like data privacy. Nothing is preventing from the browsers to really take all your private data and then supply that for data monetization.
Right.
Who's at loss after that? You as an end user. Same thing applies to the AI and all. In fact, even a more powerful way, an exponential way. What we need to really bring to life is that even citizens should be actually following what this regulation acts are and demanding even in the private settings. Not at the government level, but at the private organizations too, should be enacting what all you can use AI for, to what level, to what extent.
Right.
Not just at the government services. And more governments around the world should be actually following such acts to really make sure they are really putting this governance.
Real quick, I also want to touch on another news that made headlines is of Google again. We started with Google this episode, and perhaps towards the end we are again with another news that made headlines at Google. In a notable incident, Mandiant's X account, a cybersecurity firm subsidiary of Google, fell victim to a hack. The breach involved a hacker promoting a crypto stealing link and engaging in various activities, prompting questions about the platform's security measures. Detail on the breach remain unclear, but concern arise about the use of strong passwords and two-factor authentication. So again, a two-factor authentication, but this time around it was the subsidiary, another company of Google. So
Google acquired this company called Mandiant. And for the folks who really don't know much, Mandiant is state of the class. When top profile breaches happen, usually you will feel Mandiant team to do the forensics and triage of this incident. And they've been very reputed, very known. This is about their X, which is Twitter, for the people if they don't understand. This is Mandiant's Twitter account.
Right.
Which is the new framework we call X.
Right.
Account getting hijacked.
Right. Right.
And what happened was they fell victim of the phishing attack that was around the crypto side of the house, which talks about what practices are being used by whoever within the Mandiant did that, and that led to the compromise.
Right.
Now, even if you fell victim, we always say with the phishing attack, even if you ended up giving the credentials, you should have adopted the multi-factor authentication and other mechanisms like defense in depth, so that even though your credentials are gone or you fell victim, the other layer will defend you.
Right.
So how come you were not practicing the same when you're one of the leading providers?
Yeah.
And so that's the question here more than anything else.
Yeah.
Whether or not any harm happened to their the social reputation or internal damage, that's different story. But it's what we're saying is, even at a common user level and at the organization which are as sophisticated as Mandiant in the security, where everybody has to be responsible for applying common hygienic methods.
Great. Good information. Thank you so very much for sharing your knowledge and expertise for our viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of another episode of CyberWatch. Today on the program, we were doing the analysis of the news that made headlines in January 2024. If you have any questions, queries, concerns, or you'd like us to discuss on a particular topic in CyberWatch, you can write us cyberwatch@tvasiausa.com. Remember, CyberWatch is powered by DigitalXForce and iTrustXForce. If you want to reach out to Lalit Ahluwalia directly, Lalit, what's the best way?
The best way is to really come through our websites, the digitalxforce.com or iTrustXForce.com. We're also very active on social media, LinkedIn and other social media forums. But yes, if we cannot get you the direct answer, we'll find someone who can get the answers for you.
Great. Viewers, until next time, this is Vikas Nangia signing off. Thank you for joining us.